What's up, guys? So also Bryson here. Welcome back to another video. Today we're back here again on GeoGuessr, and this will be episode 2 of the Exploring GeoGuessr project. So today's video topic is about starting tips and tricks. So this will just basically give you an insight to some of the basic tips to know, learn, and keep in mind when starting out the game, such as driving orientation, flags, which countries are covered on Street View, etc. So I'll be going through some of those tips and kind of explaining them a little bit further in depth. So yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So the first tip I would like to share with you is driving orientation. So of course, some countries drive on the right hand side of the road and some countries drive on the left. Definitely way more countries drive on the right. I'm pretty sure it's a 165 to 75 ratio of all the countries and territories in the world. So I will put a map up on screen right now of the countries that drive on the right and the countries that drive on the left. So you can go ahead and take a look at that map at your convenience. So that is very, very useful to know to help differentiate countries. The next tip that I would like to share to learn is flags. Definitely know your flags. Flags are very useful to know, especially when you're starting out. It could definitely help you differentiate countries. I will leave a link to some websites that help you practice your flags that I personally use and really enjoy, so you could go ahead and use those to help learn flags as well. The third key tip that I would also like to share is learning which countries are covered by Google Street View. So of course, due to like political reasons and whatnot, laws and things like that, not all countries are currently covered on Google Street View. And again, I will put a map up on screen of the countries that do have coverage on Google Street View. Different countries do have like different camera generations, different density of coverage, and some countries do not have car coverage. They only have trekker coverage, which is a backpack used to take pictures of like museums, parks, tourist landmarks, and whatnot. So it's important to know definitely which countries are included but do not have like car coverage like what you're seeing right now. The coverage was taken by using a car, of course. So those are the top 3 things that you definitely need to know when you're starting out with the game. Very, very cool and very crucial to know. So moving on, another key tip to keep in mind that works a lot of the time is the sun. So the sun is in the opposite direction of the hemisphere that you are in. For example, if you are in the northern hemisphere, let's say New York City, the sun will be in the south, and if you're in the southern hemisphere, let's say Sydney, for example, the sun will be in the north. So the sun is always in the opposite direction of the hemisphere that you're currently in. This could not always be reliable though, because you do have, of course, cloudy coverage or coverage near the equator where it's really hard to tell. But general rule of thumb, it's always in the opposite direction of the hemisphere, and so that can be really, really helpful to tell apart some rural rounds and whatnot. Alright, so now let's move on to some specific things to learn about countries or territories themselves that could be very useful down the line. So the first thing is Google cars. So different countries do have different Google cars. So I will go ahead and pull up the first example now. So here is an example of a specific Google car. So this is the Google car for Kyrgyzstan. It is a gray pickup truck with visible roof racks and visible side view mirrors. This car can be found in certain other countries such as Guatemala. But again, the scenery in Kyrgyzstan and Guatemala is different. So a lot of countries will use the same car, but they're not really related or look like each other. So this is just an example of a visible Google car. You could find different forms of pickup trucks, of course, different car colors that are visible, and plenty of unique vehicles that Google Street View has been taken with. So this is one thing to learn about different countries. Again, I will go further in depth on these tips of actually saying like which cars are in which countries in future episodes, of course. And I also do have some already existing tips videos on my channel. I'm pretty sure there are 6 parts of that. So I will link all those in the description. They're kind of just scattered tips throughout the world and different topics that you could go ahead and check out. So again, all links of those will be in the description of today's video. Moving on to another thing to learn is camera generation. So there are 4 Google camera generations, Gen 1, Gen 2, Gen 3, and Gen 4 respectively. And certain countries do not have certain camera generations, of course. So the first camera generation is, of course, generation 1. This is very, very hard to come by. It's only found in like the United States, Australia, Canada, and a few other countries, and it doesn't pop up on handmade maps. So you will never see Gen 1 in like a community world, a pinpointable world, or any other common map. This could only really appear on like the world map as like a bug, or while you're moving down a street. You know, sometimes you change camera generations while you're moving down the same street. That glitch does happen sometimes. But Gen 1 can be easily identified. It is super, super poor quality. This was only used for around the start, of course, of Google Street View in 2007 up to 2009. I'm pretty sure it was the last year that Gen 1 was being used. And this is how it looks. Again, really poor quality. You could a lot of times see the car antenna, and it is found in very few countries and is very hard to come by on GeoGuessr. The next camera generation is Generation 2, and Generation 2 is a huge step up from Generation 1. They started using this in July of 2008. I'm pretty sure it was the first publish of Gen 2. You could find it in like parts of France and Italy that I've seen so far. And Gen 2 is also pretty easily identifiable, as most of the time there will be a halo in the sky and kind of rings coming off of the sun. And also you could see a giant blur around the car, so there is a giant circular blur around the car. It's pretty decent quality, definitely a huge step up from Gen 1. It's not the worst, but it's not the best, and it is also pretty easily identifiable. Next up is this is the same road as Gen 1, but in Gen 3, and as you can see, it is a pretty big difference from the previous camera generations in just a span of a few years. So Gen 3 is definitely the most common camera generation, can be found in the most countries, and a lot of the countries that only have one camera generation, it will be Generation 3. And Generation 3 is also the camera generation that is home to all of the car metas, the boat metas, ATV metas, and whatnot. So most of the pickup trucks, colored cars, snowmobiles, ATVs, you name it, that you could see from the camera will be in Generation 3. So this is how it looks. Pretty good quality. Definitely not bad at all. And then the final camera generation is Generation 4, and this is very crisp and clear, and the colors can also be oversaturated in certain images. Again, this is the same road as Gen 1, Gen 3, and now Gen 4. This road doesn't have Gen 2, so I just pulled up a different road to showcase that. But as you can see, it is a huge step up. Very crisp, very clear, and colors are oversaturated. And also a lot of times in Gen 4 you could see like a blue section of the car. It's usually in the front in certain locations. So those are how you identify the 4 camera generations and learn which countries have which generations, which I will go further in depth in another episode as mentioned before. So next up we do have license plates. So license plates are very helpful to learn. Certain countries have pretty distinct and identifiable license plates, as the ones I will show now, such as this one in Colombia. So this one is a yellow rectangular plate, and this is found in Colombia. Very easy to tell Colombia apart from the rest of Latin American countries, as it has this yellow rectangular plate. It's actually more of a square. The rectangular ones are the European ones, which this one is unique to Portugal. It does have the standard blue Euroband on the left, but it has a yellow Euroband on the right, which is exclusive to Portugal. Most European countries have the same license plate as it appears on Google Street View, a blue strip on the left, and then a long white rectangle. So again, general rule of thumb is that the Americas have those square plates, as I mentioned before, and Europe and whatnot has longer rectangular plates. So that is very important to learn the different license plates of different countries. The next tip is road lines. So road lines can be exclusive to certain countries or certain groups of countries. This one, for example, with the yellow solid line and the white dashed line following it, is only found in Uruguay, Argentina, and Finland. So those are the 3 countries that have this kind of road line, Uruguay and Argentina. It could be very useful to identify. They could be kind of hard to tell apart sometimes, but Finland looks nothing like Argentina or Uruguay, so it could be very useful to tell it apart from some of the other Nordic nations. And the last basic tip that I wanted to share with you guys to learn about the different countries are road signs. So a lot of countries have unique road signs from their neighbors, and it is very important to learn the different road signs of different countries. Another general rule of thumb is that the Americas, Southeast Asia, and Australia do have yellow rhombus warning signs like this one, and pretty much the rest of the world does use this standard triangle sign, which is a white triangle with a red border around it. As you can see, this one here in France, and this one is in Canada. So those are all of the general tips that I want to share with you today. I will definitely go more in depth of specific road signs, specific road lines, specific license plates in another episode, as mentioned. But with that being said, that is pretty much it for this video. I hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you did, do not forget to smash the like button and subscribe. As always, stay safe. And alright guys, it's been Austin, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.